Hello everybody, it is me, Analyst KB, and this is the March Madness predictions. Now, I don't expect to get a perfect bracket. No one should expect to get a perfect bracket. It's like 1 in 100 billion. But what I do expect, from this year in particular, I expect to get all 4 Final Four teams correct. That's my goal, because then I'll be higher up in the rankings, and I'll beat everybody. I'll be number 1 in the world. Give me the National Player of the Year candidate over future Walmart employees. Thank you very much. Next game. I like the way Louisville plays. They impressed me in the ACC tournament. They made the ACC championship, and they fought hard with Duke even though Cooper Flagg was out. And I don't trust Creighton too much. They were getting hyped to start the season, but they didn't live up to it at all. Louisville wins, in my opinion. Now, Michigan's bigs are great. Vladislav Golden and Danny Wolf, they're amazing. And UC San Diego is a very popular pick for a 12/5. I just don't see it here. Wolverines aren't a heater after winning the Big Ten tournament. They've shown me that they can win in close games, so give me Michigan. There's no way that future CEOs of billion-dollar companies get an upset in 3 straight tournaments. Princeton in 2023, Yale in 2024, and Yale again in 2025. No way. Whichever team wins this first 4 matchup is going to lose to Ole Miss. It's just as simple as that. North Carolina is, I think, 1 in 12 in quadrant 1 games. They've shown that they can't beat the top 50 teams in the country. And San Diego State, even though they've been really successful the last 2 years, they've lost too many good players. I don't think they got enough. I didn't even know Lipscomb was even a collegiate basketball team. I had no clue at all. And no one really has ever wanted to commit to Lipscomb. It was never their first choice. So in that case, Iowa State probably rolls them. New Mexico lost current Big 12 Player of the Year, JT Toppin, who was on Texas Tech. They really haven't lost any momentum from last season. They got a really good player in Donovan Dent. Don't really like the way Marquette's playing. Now, they've been playing all right, and on paper, Marquette should be performing better than what they are. And I'm just not confident in them at all. I'll like New Mexico in this matchup. Fun fact of the day. The Spartans under Tom Izzo have been to 8 Final Fours in his 28-year tenure. That averages out to be a Final Four roughly every 4 tournaments. MSU is due for another one. Fun fact of the region, right here. The Gators are one of my favorite animals. And it just so happens to be that Florida are the Florida Gators. At the beginning of this 2024 NFL season, I told myself that either the Kansas City Chiefs or UConn Huskies were going to three-peat. But it wasn't going to be both. Well, the Chiefs didn't win it all. And as of right now, it seems highly unlikely that UConn will either. Upset of the region. Colorado State is riding high on a 10-game winning streak, folks. They won the Mountain West tournament, and the Mountain West is a really good conference. One of the factors in me picking Colorado State is the unknowingness of how badly Tyrese Hunter is injured. And Memphis is good, but they do have some questionable losses, like losing by 13 to Arkansas State, who isn't even in March Madness. The 4-13, Maryland and Grand Canyon, there's just no way an online school upsets a high seed in back-to-back tournaments. I like Dairy Queen to put us some big numbers in this matchup. 6 Missouri versus 11 Drake is our next matchup in the West region. And Drake has been a popular double-digit seed upset for the last couple tournaments. But they haven't gotten it done, not once. But this is the year that they get it done. They upset Missouri to go to the second round. 3 Texas Tech versus 14 UNC Wilmington. And I don't like the name Wilmington. But you know what I do like? JT Toppin. He's a pretty good player. I like JT Toppin. 7 Kansas versus 10 Arkansas. This is one of the closest matchups in the entire first round, in my opinion. 2 Hall of Fame coaches, really talented teams who have underperformed, to say the least, and they both had the name Kansas in them. And for that reason, I'm going with the real Kansas. Badunga dude, he's going to carry them to the promised land. 2 St. John's versus 15 Omaha. Pinto Patino is a Hall of Fame coach. Omaha isn't a Hall of Fame program. To me, that's simple math. St. John's moves on. Now on to the East region, Duke versus either 16 American or Mount St. Mary's. I'll take the freshman phenom and the future of the USA national team over future Disneyland employees of the month. 8 Mississippi State versus 9 Baylor is the next matchup in the East region. These 8-9 matchups are almost always a coin flip, and this one is no different. I'll go with the SEC team, though. Harder competition, and I like Josh Hubbard when he isn't completely chucking threes and bricking every single one of them. 5 Oregon versus 12 Liberty. I'm not that confident in Oregon. I don't like Bill and his receding hairline. His hair just bothers me. But I'm even less confident in Liberty for the sole reason that they're so overhyped every year in football, and they somehow always disappoint. That was until I saw that Liberty is 25-0, undefeated in games where they score over 70 points this season. Fun fact, Oregon lets up an average of 71 points per game. Liberty wins. Yes, Liberty wins. Liberty wins. Woohoo! 4 Arizona versus 13 Akron. Like the way the Wildcats have been playing recently. They made the Big 12 championship. They played Houston tough, but they ended up losing. Yeah, I just don't see a way Arizona loses this game. 6 BYU versus 11 VCU. People are gassing up VCU so hard, but for what? I just don't see it. Like, okay, they won the A10. It's the A10. Well, good job, VCU. But BYU, they're on a different level. They have Richie Saunders. They got Igor Dimon, who is projected to be maybe a top 10 pick in this year's NBA draft, ladies and gentlemen. BYU is legit, and I know they lost by 20 to Houston, but that's Houston. Come on. 3 Wisconsin versus 14 Montana. Wisconsin really disgusted me with the way they played in the Big Ten championship against Michigan. And as soon as I feel the slight possibility, the slight chance that a team could upset them, I'm picking the other team against Wisconsin. Next game, 7 St. Mary's versus 10 Vanderbilt. It's a whole lot of mid. I'll take St. Mary's because Vanderbilt's been on a losing streak, so I'll take St. Mary's. But yeah, just a whole lot of mid here. 2 Alabama versus 15 Robert Morris to wrap up this East region. As much as I think Alabama's defense will hold them back in the later rounds, they won't lose to the Aquamarine Community College of Sciences. Midwest region now. 1 Houston versus 16 SIUE. I think that's Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville. They must have came from like NAIA or something, because I've never heard of this team a day in my life. Yeah, Houston rolls by about 65, I'd give it. Next game, 8 Gonzaga versus 9 Georgia. A lot of people are talking about the Gonzaga Bulldogs being a dangerous 8 seed, and I somewhat see it. But I think some of that propaganda is based on what Gonzaga has done in the past and not what they're doing right now. Gonzaga did get swept by St. Mary's in the regular season. Yeah, I'll take Gonzaga. Next game, 5 Clemson versus 12 McNeese. McNeese really disappointed me last year. I picked them to go to the Sweet 16. They got crushed in the first round by, I think it was actually Gonzaga. So yeah, give me Clemson. Clemson is I'm telling you folks, Clemson is a really dangerous team to make the Final Four. Next game, 4 Purdue versus 13 High Point. I'm going to be honest. I haven't watched not one High Point game, not just this season, but a day in my life. I'm not basing this off of anything other than the fact that I won a 13-4 upset. So yes, give me High Point over Purdue. Purdue started the season hot, but they've lost 6 of 9 to end the season. Think they lose 7 of 10 to finish out their campaign. Next game, 6 Illinois versus either 11 Texas or Xavier. I'm banking on the fact Texas beats Xavier, and I really liked how the Longhorns played in the SEC tournament. I also think Illinois just isn't that good. Illinois was at one point ranked inside the top 10. They got Kasparis Jakusionis, or however you say his name. Give me Texas and Trey Johnson, who is going to be undoubtedly a top 5 pick in this year's draft. Next game, 3 Kentucky versus 14 Troy. Kentucky is quite injured. They still won't lose to Troy. Next game, 7 UCLA versus 10 Utah State. I downright despise UCLA. And honestly, I can't put a finger on why I despise UCLA. I watched them in the Big Ten tournament. They didn't look good at all. I miss the days with Tiger Campbell and Johnny Juzang and that 2021-2022 team. I miss that team. I miss that UCLA. Next game, 2 Tennessee versus 15 Wofford. Not much to say other than the Volunteers will destroy Wofford. And that'll be the end of the first round. On to the round of 32 in the South region. 1 Auburn faces 8 Louisville. I don't really see any reality where Louisville wins this game. Auburn is too experienced and they're the number 1 overall seed for a reason. Next game, 4 Texas A&M versus 5 Michigan. I like Michigan here. A&M is shown to be hot and cold. They're streaky. They got as high as number 7 in the AP poll, but then lost 4 straight after that. I really like Michigan's twin tower duo of Vladislav Golden and Danny Wolf. I just do. Next game, 3 Iowa State versus 6 Ole Miss. Ole Miss plays every high-level team tough, and I think that'll help them in March. They aren't scared of the higher seeds, and Iowa State is no exception. Cyclones are injured as well, but give me Ole Miss in this game to make the Sweet 16. 2 Michigan State versus 10 New Mexico. Michigan State wins this, even though I looked long and hard at the upset here. I can't see it. The Spartans have the 2nd most quad 1 wins in the nation this season. On to the West region, 1 Florida versus 9 Oklahoma. Florida's on 2 odd streak to lose to Oklahoma, who finished 14th in the SEC. Next game, 4 Maryland versus 12 Colorado State. Fun fact of the region, the last 16 tournaments, there's been a double-digit seed to make the Sweet 16. Maryland has no depth whatsoever. I think they have the highest scoring starting 5 in the country, because that's all they can play is the starting 5, because their depth is horrible. 3 Texas Tech versus 11 Drake is the next matchup. Texas Tech is a real threat to make the Final Four, guys. They were actually the only team to beat Houston in Big 12 play this year. Next game, 2 St. John's versus 7 Kansas. St. John's is arguably a top 5 defense in the nation, but their offense is lackluster to say the least. I was honestly a bit surprised they won the Big East tournament. East region, 1-8 matchup, Duke versus Mississippi State. Duke is just too talented. Next game, 4 Arizona versus 12 Liberty. Liberty can't win another game. I won't allow it. I'll make an executive decision to end Liberty Collegiate Athletics as a whole if they make it to the Sweet 16. Wisconsin BYU is next. BYU. Wisconsin sucks. And I don't like John Tonji's hair. Why is there one strand of hair hanging down? Now the 2-7 Alabama and St. Mary's. St. Mary's is mid. Now on to the Midwest region. Houston versus Gonzaga. Gonzaga looks good. They got Ryan Nembhard, who leads the nation in assists. Houston's defense is number 1 in the nation for like the 4th year in a row, and I think that'll hold Gonzaga down, who has one of the best offenses in the country. Next game, 5 Clemson versus 13 High Point. Clemson, as I've said already, they're a real sleeper to make the Final Four. I like Ian Shefflin too. Next game, 3 Kentucky versus 11 Texas if they beat Xavier in the first 4, which I hope, or else my predictions are screwed. I like Texas, man. I think Texas pulls the 11-3 upset and moves on to the Sweet 16. Next game, 2 Tennessee versus 10 Utah State. Utah State is a really good team, and they were a top 2 team in the Mountain West regular season, but Tennessee is just too good, man. They're one of 3 teams to be number 1 in the AP poll for multiple weeks this season, along with Kansas, who were number 1 from the preseason to week 6, and then Auburn, who was number 1 from week 11 to week 18. Sweet 16 in the South region is 1 Auburn versus 5 Michigan. Auburn struggles with teams who can deal with their size and physicality, but maybe struggle is too strong of a word, as Auburn won the most physical league in America with 2 weeks left in the regular season. Struggling for them is winning a game by 5 points, while others' definition of struggling is losing 3 games in a row, or 4 games in a row, or even 5 games in a row. Michigan doesn't have good enough guards to contend with the athleticism of the Tigers guards. Tahad Pettiford, Denver Jones, people like that. Miles Kelly, it's just like, they're really good. 2 Michigan State versus 6 Ole Miss. Upset alert! Upset alert! I never really thought of Michigan State to be a real threat to win a national championship. And they're probably good enough to make at least an Elite 8, but not in this case when they face Ole Miss. Now, I might be overrating Ole Miss a ton. I don't know. Ole Miss to the Elite 8. 1 Florida versus 12 Colorado State. I took the Rams far enough. Florida wins by KO. Next game, 3 Texas Tech versus 7 Kansas. If Kansas were to make the Sweet 16, the preseason expectations of them being the clear national championship favorite were going to reemerge. And just like last time, they'll disappoint again. I got Texas Tech. And fun fact of the region, JT Toppin actually graduated high school at 15 years old, but wanted to wait until he was 18 to play college basketball. If you don't believe me, just look it up. Now on to the East region, 1 Duke versus 4 Arizona. Arizona just seems outmatched. And I'm not falling into the Arizona Final Four hype again. I'm just not doing it. They got me the last 2 years. No, I'm not doing it. Duke wins via Cooper Flag favoritism referee calls. Next game out of the East region, 2 Alabama versus 6 BYU. Alabama's defense scares me a lot. They're kind of like the equivalent of the 2010s Packers and Saints. They have electric and efficient offenses, but a defense that holds them back from winning a championship. This is how I feel about the Crimson Tide. They average 91 points per game. That's the highest in the nation, but they also give up 81. Against the top teams that they consistently give up 90-plus points per game, and sometimes even 100. In the SEC tournament, they gave up 104 to Florida. That was an SEC record. I'll take BYU. BYU has the same type of offense as Alabama, but just a better defense. I got them going to Elite 8. Nice. And on to the Midwest region, 1 Houston versus 5 Clemson. Like I've said before, if it weren't for Houston being in the same region as Clemson, I likely would have taken the Tigers to the Final Four. That's probably what would have happened. They have a well-rounded and experienced team who just made the Elite 8 last year. But Houston is just more well-rounded and experienced. They're just that much better. Clemson is really good, but Houston is elite across the board, in my opinion. And the final game of the Sweet 16, 2 Tennessee versus 11 Texas. This is where the Longhorns run comes to an end at the hands of the Volunteers, who actually ended their SEC tournament run. Tennessee lost 2024 National Player of the Year runner-up Dalton Knecht to the NBA, but they actually might have gotten better because of it, and I'll tell you why. That's because with Knecht, they relied heavily on him, but this season without him, they spread the ball around more and get more people involved, making their offense not one-dimensional. In the Elite 8, 1 Auburn versus 6 Ole Miss. Ole Miss has shown the inability to beat the Auburn Tigers, losing to them twice in the regular season and also in the SEC tournament. That SEC tournament game was the best they played against the Tigers, and I don't think they'll be able to duplicate that in the Elite Eight. And honestly, I probably would have had Auburn losing before the Elite Eight if they hadn't lost 3 out of their last 4. Because teams got to experience losing. Because when you're the Auburn Tigers and you're so completely dominant the entire year, you started the year 27-2. You had a chance to finish the year 32-2, but no, you finished the year 28-5. I think that actually helps them in the long run, even though their record doesn't look as good. I think they'll become a better team because of it. Auburn Tigers to the Final Four. Now the West Regional Final, 1 Florida versus 3 Texas Tech. Florida honestly got the best draw out of all the number 1 seeds, despite being seen in the eyes of the committee as the 4th best 1 seed. Seeds 2 through 4 in their region were St. John's, who was most definitely the worst 2 seed, Texas Tech, which is a quality 3 seed, they're probably the best 3 seed in the tournament, and Maryland, who doesn't have a chance in the world to make a Final Four. But Florida's still an elite team. Nothing to take away from them. They just got a really good drop. They got elite guard play, very good bigs, and a solid bench. They're the hottest team in the country. But just like what I said with Auburn, there will come a time in the tournament where Florida's down in the final 10 minutes. Will the pressure get to them? I hope not, because I picked them to go to the Final Four. In the East Regional Final, 1 Duke versus 6 BYU. Cinderella. BYU has what it takes to make a Final Four. I told myself before March Madness started that I'd take a 5 or 6 seed to San Antonio. And if it wasn't Clemson, it'd be the Cougars of BYU. Sure, Duke has 3 consensus top 10 picks in this year's NBA draft. Sure, Duke has the National Player of the Year. Sure, Duke is the number 1 ranked team in the country. But do you know what Duke doesn't have? Belief, faith, trust. BYU has extra belief, faith, and trust. And to add on to that, they are a certain type of school. And to add on to that, the Elite Eight will be played on the 29th and 30th. A Saturday and Sunday. The stars are aligning. It all makes sense now. I can picture it in my head right now. BYU makes the Final Four. This is the only matchup where I have the top 2 seeds making the Elite Eight in the region. And this will be a game that ends in the high 50s to low 60s, I assume, because these are the 2 best defensive teams in the country. And defense wins championships. According to most people, both of these teams have great defensive players. Zakai Ziegler in the SEC, he won Defensive Player of the Year. He's on Tennessee. Joseph Tugler, he won DPOY in the Big 12. He's on Houston. I think Houston has the better defense, though. They've only lost 1 game since December. That's insane. Milos Usain has been getting better every week. 3 guards for the Cougars are going to be key for them winning this game. Houston has been a 1 seed the past 3 tournaments, but the last 2 years they bowed out in the Sweet 16. This year, they head to the Final Four. And in the Final Four, we have 1 Auburn versus 1 Florida. Florida got the 90-81 win over the Tigers in February, but Auburn will get their revenge in San Antonio. I can just see it. The Florida guards will have a tough time defending the Auburn guards, but vice versa. The key factor is likely National Player of the Year runner-up Johni Broome and how he'll handle the Gator Bigs' physicality. If this ends up a close game, like I'd expect, it'll come down to who makes the majority of their free throws, and Florida's lackluster free throw percentage might be the downfall of them. Both teams are led by 4th and 5th year players. This might be an all-time classic Final Four matchup, but I think the number 1 overall seed takes it here. And in the other Final Four matchup, 1 Houston versus 6 BYU. BYU has lost to Houston twice this season by a combined 51 points. There's no reason why I should think BYU could get it done this time. It's just simply a bad matchup for BYU. And in the national championship, we have 1 Auburn versus 1 Houston. I know. It's boring to have 2 1 seeds make the national championship. But this year, more than ever, I feel it's very likely that the top seeds went out. This honestly feels like a year all 4 top seeds can make the Final Four for the first time since 2008. Both of these teams are led by upperclassmen, and both of these teams have been threats to make deep runs into March for the last 3 or 4 seasons. In the end, I feel it's Houston's time to break through and win it all. They only lost 1 Big 12 game the whole year, and the Big 12 isn't no slouch conference either. For the past decade, the Big 12 has been seen as the best college basketball conference, and this year they've been just as good as any conference not named the SEC. People could say, well, Duke went 19-1 in the ACC, why don't you have them in the national championship? To put it lightly, the ACC had a down year of all down years. They have 4 teams on the field of 68, and the conference just has a whole lot of mid in it. Houston has been building for this since 2021 when they made their first Final Four in 37 years. And Kelvin Sampson will finally get it done with the perfect roster. Even though this is a number 1 seed, Houston had been flying under the radar until the last 3 weeks of the regular season. Still, among the eyes of experts and fans, the Cougars are still clearly behind Auburn, Duke, and Florida when it comes to the hierarchy of national championship favorites.